Well everyone, welcome to Project Stitches. You guys overwhelmingly told me that this needed to be called Stitches because of the plastic welding video that we did on it. So I think we'll go with it. Yeah, I know, that's it's a pretty horrible name. Alright, so this thing is, I don't know whether you would call it a real wheel horse or a fake wheel horse, but it's a 265 series. Originally would have been a 6-speed 820 rear end. Obviously we are missing the rear end. So what we're gonna do is see if we can get Stitches up and running using this MST here. I have a video on this where we piece it together after it ended up with a bunch of gears exploded in it. I'll post a link down below. But basically this has an LSD in it that we put in when we rebuilt it. So we're going to throw this into Stitches. We've got the copper head gasket engine that we crammed down there from that video. We're going to see if we can cram that into Stitches. The problem is Stitches originally had a old school single cylinder Kohler in it. Well, not too old school, but it was the type that had the triangular air filter, and those had different connections most of the time than the Briggs and Stratton did. So we're gonna have to figure out some sort of gobbledygook in order to put it together. Luckily we have both the working choke and the working throttle on here. The other thing that's interesting about these is that they have, if I pop that, they have an adjustable steering column. Whoops. There it goes. So if you're tall like me, you can adjust it to there. And if you're short like Jesse or John, you can adjust it all the way to there. Which is the reason why I was thinking we should rebuild this. Because currently the hydro that we're using in order to do gravel makes horrifying noises, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds pretty bad. It's on its way out. So we're debating rebuilding this in order to at least use it in the spring in order to haul a cart and redo about 10 yards worth of gravel on the driveway. And then maybe we'll build it into something else. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Alright. Unfortunately, between the time that I originally saw this machine and the time that it showed up at my house, this shifting on the console ended up getting broken off, along with the hood in its current state. So I think we're going to pull this and we're going to see if we can do some sort of welding onto the end of this rod to get it back through there and hope that maybe we can make it work. Alright, go for it. Tiny Hands is going to see if he can get the inside piece out.
It was kind of roomy in here.
Yeah, I went to pull that off and apparently the rubber piece either swelled up and popped off of there or something. How's the rest of it in there? You think it's usable?
Yep.
Okay. Well, you said it's usable, so if the filter gets clogged the first time we use it, are you paying for it?
No.
No, not that one. The one you can't see through. This one. There's supposed to be a hole all the way through it. There isn't. I'm telling you, good help is hard to find around here. Anyways, we've got the old school U-bolts, or I'm not sure what you call those bolts, but they go in here because this frame is set up with 12-inch inner brackets. So the U-bolts come in from the inside and drop down so that you don't have to try and get anything up in here. We've got the stock belt in underneath here, so I'm trying to figure out what size the rear pulley was supposed to be originally. We've got a belt guide there, and we've got a belt guide here. So I'm going to measure between the two of these and just kind of guess using that. But while we were underneath here, we found our first episode of Engineers Suck. Why? Why would you put a valve right there when the transmission sits right here? You can't get to it. Thanks, engineers. Engineers Suck. Round 2. Normally, the battery is like right here in a lot of machines. Or right here. At least semi-accessible in a lot of machines. I do believe the stock battery location for this thing was supposed to be all the way down there. So I'm assuming to change the battery, you must have had to have undone this, that, and take this entire panel assembly out and then slide the battery in. I'm not quite sure. We might just plain booster pack start this thing for a little while. Because if that's where the battery goes, that's kind of a pain. Save yourself some time, put a brand spanking new snap ring on. But am I the only builder who finds it strange that it is cheaper to buy an assortment of snap rings than it is to buy a 10-pack of 5/8 rings? Plus you get 20 in the assortment. I just don't get that. But anyways, got a brand spanking new ring on here. We've got to fabricate our own shifter arm for this. So we're going to get this bolted up into here and then work on the idea of this shifter arm here so that we can set it for neutral, set this for neutral, and then go from there. We grabbed just a really grungy piece of rod, but now we've got neutral, and then you pull back all the way up through, down, push in, reverse. The springs are missing, and here's the reason why. Inside, what I figured out was that the only way you could get it all the way out was to punch that pin, that's still hot, punch that pin out in order to be able to pull this piece out in order to be able to do this assembly. And what that basically translates to is the only way you can actually fix that and put the spring in is all of this assembly has to come off. So we're just going to do it this way. There we are. I grabbed a shifter out of a parts transmission and worked on cutting the little square there. It's 3/8 by 3/8, by the way, if you need to make one of these. And the easiest way that I have found to do this is to drill a 3/8 hole in, then grab a saber saw and cut the 4 corners out, and then grab one of these file sets and grab this file here and file down into each one of these corners. And that usually tends to work in order to build one of these out of scratch. Now I am going to drill another hole here and probably another hole up in here so that that shifting rod we can move around into a few different locations. And then we'll try this thing. Alright, John, go ahead and go reverse, then neutral, then up through. Reverse. Neutral, up through. There we go. What'd you do? Did you not eat your Wheaties this morning? Somebody's overtired. Come on, go back to neutral. There, neutral. Now go into reverse. There. Yeah, so as John's demonstrating, there is a lot of pressure on that pivot. So it's actually not that surprising that that rod was snapped off and you don't see this particular style anymore. Putting John to use because he's got tiny fingers and can load up those stupid drill bits from drilling out the jets on the 713cc Duramax to fix the lean problem. We've got a couple of Moxies here. We got an engine bay that's very empty. And we have the copper head gasket Briggs & Stratton. That's our goal today, is to see if that will bolt right in there where the 14 horsepower Kohler single was. I'm not going to bother with the wiring on this. We're literally just going to probably put a booster pack to the engine and call it good. I might put a kill switch up there, but that's literally all I plan to do. I just need this thing running so that we can bring in our next actual project. There we go. John got that all scraped down and luckily found out that there's all kinds of universal bolt pattern holes underneath there. We've got the regular 3 there, the 3 there, the 3 there, and the 2 over there with the offset. So, that's good. We'll drop that engine on there and see if we can figure out which ones line up. Wanted to blatantly show the part number for this because a lot of people have asked. You should be able to order this through AutoZone, but I'll have an Amazon link down below. One of the things that we're dealing with here is we don't have a pulse pump on the engine we're putting in, so that gas tank is too low for this setup. So what we're debating is just being able to dump one of these right about in here, or maybe even get fancy and make a bracket that puts it down in here. We're going to get the engine in first and see what kind of room we have to play with. Working on getting the tires on so that we can drop the rear end down and start trying to put the engine in. But I wanted to point out my Folgers can of axle spacers here, and I've talked about this in many junk out videos. These are all different size spacers depending on whether you've got 32-inch long axles, 34-inch long axles, 36-inch long axles, and then on top of that, the spacers usually have in-between sizes. So like that one is for a spicer that's supposedly for a 32-inch wide spicer. This one is for a 36-inch wide spicer, whereas this is for a 36-inch MST. They all use different configurations and stuff depending on where they wanted the axles and everything and where they wanted the tire to sit to the style of fender. So this particular one has a set of 34-inch wide axles, so it sits a little bit proud of this. So the machine probably came with 32s originally stock in its setup it had before. So we're going to grab some of these, get it figured out, and go from there. Welcome to Science with John. John's question: Dad, if I put a Hot Wheel on the sander, do you think it would stay there, and how fast would it go? Alright, turn it on. Nope. Set it all the way to the far side, because I think the back plate's not exactly perfect. No, other side. Yep, got it square. I think the back plate's bent. Okay. Try it again. Nope. And this has been an episode of Science with John. Oh, you're going to see if you can hold it there? Mm-hmm. That's a bad idea.
I know.
Okay. Alright, pull it off. How bad are the tires? Focus. Oh, it actually didn't destroy them as much as I expected. And this has been an episode of Science with John.
Hey.
Well, I was afraid of this. See, Kohlers tend to have a dump down right here and then come out feature to them in how their exhaust runs. So right now the exhaust is coming down and the standard exhaust for this Briggs is slamming into right there. So therefore none of those line up. So we're going to take this off. And this is all popped out because this is a modern head on an older block. On a side note, just so that you can tell that, real quick if you're looking at them, if you see this triangle instead of rectangles here, where it squares off, that is a 502 head, and that is the more modern design head. Should have better flow and all that kind of jazz, but yet they still explode head gaskets in the same exact place after like 20 years. You would think they might fix that. Okay, so we're going to get the engine lifted up and the front end lifted up now so that we can get in and work on the engine pulley. We got that set up. It's not quite where it really needs to be. I really should have fabricated this to come out further and then settle down. Yeah, that's why it's in neutral. And that's why you don't get underneath it until you're positive, right? Alright. Here we go. So this is a 90s yard machine drive pulley. It originally would have been on a flathead Briggs & Stratton, but given a couple of spacers, that seems to fit to the idler there. That goes down through, goes into this clutch setup here. The clutch actually throws this direction, goes around there, goes through this hidden little idler here that I'm hoping is just there to be pretty because the bearings are gone. Comes all the way straight back up through and onto the engine pulley. One thing I wanted to point out here is that this is adjustable. So they must have planned ahead for the belt to stretch in this system because there's a good solid 1.5 inches of movement in this adjuster. So right now I've got it as tight as it'll go with the original belt that was on here. We're just going to hope we got it figured out. John, you want to throw that clutch for them once or twice? So that's how the clutch system works, right there. So it's actually pivoting here, which is interesting because a modern day MTD uses the same style of clutch, only this pivot is actually moved to right about in here instead. Hi, John, you can let off. Alright, we'll see whether this thing will fire up and pretend like it wants to move. Alright, in the words of John, it's going to be loud. John's got the clutch behind me in order to go and help out. And we're going to slam this thing with some voltage. I forgot that the choke is an override setup choke for off-roading, and it's not going to work for this. We'll swap it out later. That was going really good until John managed to break my welds for the second time on attempting to build this shifter. As you noticed, we did have a kill switch in underneath here because we haven't decided what we're going to do with the dash. So I'm going to fix the shifting rod for the third time because I apparently just can't do that right. I was trying to maintain this cute little back and forth pivoting whatever thing that was in here. Never mind. It just was too garbled and broken. So now we've got the rod coming straight through the whole thing, welded solid to here. This is welded solid in here. Now it has to pivot. It is what it is. Sometimes you just got to give up on it and make it work. There we go. We have an exhaust welded on because, like John pointed out, it was atrociously loud. As always, the little turn-on plastic pieces ended up shattering off, so we grabbed a couple of 5/8 bolts and welded them on the tips. Undid it with an impact, slid it forward so that John can reach, and stuffed them back in. Now, would you like to take it for a test drive?
Sure.
Okay. So this transmission does have our spring LSD setup in it. So it's a heavyweight GX 390 spring in the rear. So we're gonna monkey with it. Oh, I think he upped the gears because now I can't keep up with him. Fourth. I can hear something that sounds like a little bit of slipping. We know that belt is junk. So maybe that's what's going on. Yep, 6th gear. I wonder who taught him to do hand signals to show what gear he's in during video. Can't imagine. Well, we ended up minorly stuck at this point. It's not doing too bad, but that's what turf savers will get you. Oh! LSD kicked in. There we go. That's the one thing that LSD spring really kicks in on. If you drop your clutch, the spring resets, and then when you punch your clutch off, both rear tires spin for a little bit because of the spring. It makes a giant difference.